7:32, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. We have a guest in studio this morning as we continue on with our Meet the Campaign series. Meet the Candidate series, I should say. Matt Morgan, who is running for delegate, and we are welcome.
Yeah, Delegate 29A. Johnny Woodsey, right? He's decided to retire, and but this isn't your first go-around when it comes to running. I mean, this is familiar territory for you, right?
Oh, yeah. I ran against Johnny Wood back in 2010, and we had the closest state-level race of that year. Ended up winning on Election Day, lost on early voting absentee ballots.
How do you feel about early voting?
I think early voting's too long. I don't think it's cost effective. If we were going to limit early voting, it makes no sense that it'd be open 8 days and then shut down for, 4 days and then come vote again.
Right.
So my proposal for early voting would be the Thursday, like starting today. Through Sunday, and then Election Day on Tuesday. I think that makes more sense.
Okay.
What about Monday? Why isn't it open the day before?
Well, it takes a little bit of time for the Board of Elections to set up computers and set up these remote locations because we have schools running on Mondays. So it does take a little bit of time for them to do the back office stuff.
And I'm not sure if you're familiar at all with some of the stories that are coming out of where are they having problems with the early voting machines? Where they keep hitting Democrat and or they keep hitting Republican and it flips over to Democrat, and the excuse is the women have their fingernails too long.
They said it was fat fingers and fingernails
and
being
fingernails
too long.
are too long. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I have heard about it, and it's concerning. But we need to do something about election law in general. I do think there is some corruption in the system, and it would be easy to manipulate. If you think about it, all candidates have access to voter rolls. And as you're checking off people as they show up to vote, a lot of teams or campaigns that are better funding, they'll have people there actually watching the polls. By 5 o'clock, you know who's voted and who hasn't. Right. So all you would have to do is just walk in there and say, "Hi, I'm James Morgan," address, and they would let you vote. If you had a team of like 5 or 6 people, you could run around the county. Next thing you know, it's like 300-400 votes.
Right. All right. Well, you were running for delegate. What do you hope to accomplish if you get to Annapolis?
Well, we hope to accomplish some quality of life issues. Lower the cost of living for people in there. I door knock a lot, and taxes are overwhelmingly the number one issue that everyone's talking about, but no one talks about the human aspect of that.
Oh, let's listen to the human aspect.
Well,
Go ahead.
I mean, especially for an area like St. Mary's that has a rich heritage and families that have lived here for 200-300 years. This tax situation is breaking families up.
Yeah,
people are like, "I'm out of here as soon as I retire," or my kid just left because he couldn't find a job. And I started thinking about that. Both my parents are still alive and they live in the area. And they watch my kids all the time. They come over.
Right.
And I think that's important. And we're putting in roadblocks to,
Well, it does break families up. And that is absolutely true. And, if you're looking at, we've had this conversation many times. If you're looking at a kid and maybe they're getting out of high school, maybe they're going to college, whatever. Anyway, once they start in the workforce, there's probably not a whole lot of housing options for them in Southern Maryland. I mean, it's not like they're going to come right out of school and buy, $300,000-$400,000 house. So they got to go where the money is. They got to go where the jobs are. They got to go where the affordable living is, and that's not Maryland.
That's not Maryland. I mean, we are a dual income area.
Right.
Cost of living is extremely high here.
How do you dial that back? How do you start building situations where families can stay together, stay in the area, find work, and find affordable living?
We all live in one house, a big house, and we all live in one, like the Waltons, T. That's what we do.
Well, you got to look at the tax situation. I mean, taxes are going up, and we're making it harder for people to work to survive. And when you incentivize people that don't work and reward people that don't work and incentivize people that don't work, you have a harder time. You get more people not working.
I've said many times and I'm just, I'm just a guy looking at the situation. I'm not an insider, but I look at Annapolis and it looks like they look like tax junkies to me. I mean, they are addicted to taxes. How do you break that? How do you go up there and say, "Hey guys, I know you love this and you're making a ton of money on it, now stop"? They're not going to do that.
Well, I mean, I think they should do that.
Yeah, I do too.
And I don't know why they don't want to put policies in place that enables, for them to do better as well. See, the Maryland revenue, they get about 49% of their total revenue for some type of income tax. So the people that do the best when we're at full employment is actually Maryland government. Now, unfortunately, we put regulations, taxes on businesses, and there's less businesses now.
Right.
So unemployment is up. I think we're at 6.4%. And, government doesn't do real well when there's not a lot of people working.
Right.
So we need to increase revenues by putting, regulations, taxes in place that benefits businesses.
And grow business, grow jobs, grow taxes. That's just what happens.
Well, okay, so that's I've heard that echoed a lot, and everybody has seen the mass exodus of jobs out of Maryland, companies closing, companies moving, going other places. What kind of carrot can we dangle that would bring factories and jobs to Maryland?
Well, first you got to address the issue of the tax increases, and that's deficit spending. See, anytime you spend more money than what you make, it only results in a tax increase the following year. And that's what's been driving the excessive spending. So we always say we need to rein in government spending. I heard Steve on the radio yesterday, and I have to give those guys a shout out, my colleagues, Deb Ray and Steve Wah. I know they're both out sign waving, and Steve's actually up on the corner of Golden Beach Road with my wife and some other volunteers.
It's a little chilly this morning.
Yeah, give them a honk as they're going by. But we need to rein in government spending, and what I mean by that...
What about a sequestration for Maryland government? What about 15% across the board, every single department, every single expenditure, how about that? 15%, bam, let's cut it.
Heather, we don't even have to do that. If we would have took the 2014 budget, and let's say we grew it by, just say a mere 1.5%, the cost of inflation. Right now, we'd be looking at $1 billion surplus instead of a $400 million structural deficit. Y'all just had Comptroller Peter Francho on,
yeah.
And he compared the spending to feeding seagulls at the beach.
At the beach.
I thought that was a funny statement because basically he's calling the current legislators the annoying kid throwing the Fritos in the air.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, okay, so
who's the seagull at that point? That's what I'm worried
Well, those would be the takers, not the payers.
Right.
So one of the major expenses that Maryland incurred over the last 18 months, 2 years, whatever it is this ridiculous healthcare website. Why is that not an issue for more people? It seems like that wasn't much of an issue when
Does open enrollment, is that going on now or does it start November 1?
I'm not sure about the open enrollment, but I don't know why it's not more of an issue.
It's a huge amount of money.
Well, it's a huge amount of money, and I think people have a hard time grasping how much money it is. It's almost it's almost equal to St. Mary's County not paying income taxes for a year.
And it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and we replaced it with a Massachusetts system.
Connecticut.
Right.
I think it
Connecticut.
was
Like
Connecticut.
that, yeah.
And I think, but see, I don't know if they've tested that yet.
Well,
and that's why I asked about open enrollment, because I think that's November 1. People need to start signing up for health care through the Obama plan.
Maryland was a minority in that. We were one of 17 states that created our own healthcare website.
Instead of
Virginia used the federal site for nothing.
Right.
So they're not out any money, where we're on a $200 million boondoggle. And this is what happens when you turn taxpayers into venture capitalists.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you feel about term limits?
I do. I support term limits. I've heard good reasons why not to have them, and unfortunately, it does get rid of some good people, but you have to realize some of the problems we face here in Maryland. We have a Speaker of the House and a Senate President that's been elected since 1872. And, we're supposed to have 3 equal branches of government. Well, the governor has term limits for good reason. Well, the legislatures can draw themselves into a friendly district that, for the most part, they don't even have to worry about re-election.
Right.
And those guys aren't going anywhere. Mm-hmm. So, who has more power then?
Well, let's say you win. How many terms would you look to, if everything goes your way, how many terms would you look to be up there?
A couple more elections like this, not many more.
Right.
But, I think 3 terms is probably a good limit. After that, you start running out of ideas and facing, and you don't want to just limit yourself and say, hey, I don't want to give up any negotiation ability saying, this guy will be out of here in a little bit. But I think 3 terms is plenty.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the biggest expenditures when it comes to state government, and that is education. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the state sending the responsibility of the pensions for the teachers to the counties?
Oh, that's.
But the state was in trouble. They were in trouble. They looked down the road and they said, "There's no way we're ever going to pay this. We cannot afford this." So they passed it on to the counties. Well, how are the counties going to pay for it?
Well, you have to look at the reason why the states were in trouble. I mean, stimulus package came out in 2009 and basically was a package to fill state budget holes. And we got that free money there from the federal government and grew government real big. And then in 2011, we're looking around like, oh my gosh, we got a lot of budget holes. So we shifted 50% of the responsibility off to the counties. We socked it to the teachers, gave them a 2% increase. It cost everybody in St. Mary's about $42 more per paycheck. But the most disingenuous thing is they diverted $100 million from the contribution rates from the teacher's pension towards the general fund.
Right.
And they took $200 million. Well,
$200 million, I thought.
2011 it was $100 million. This year it was $200.
$200 million this year.
Next year they're talking about another $200. So think about this.
Just robbing blindly from the teachers.
Well,
that's what's happening.
We shifted off state government. They shifted off 50% of the responsibility for the teacher's pension. And then 3 of the last 5 years, they misused the contribution rates.
Right.
Now, Bernie Madoff went to jail for this. Mm-hmm. Your state legislators voted themselves a raise last year.
I don't think that this is an issue that has been really flushed out. It seems like this is one of those things where they've been masterful at burying it, because this is coming down the tracks, and I don't think teachers fully understand what's going on. That big light is a train bearing down on you. It is your pension, and that has been shifted to the local governments because the state couldn't handle its obligations. The state said, we're out. So now you figure it out. Well, if the county can't figure it out, guess what? You don't get your pensions.
Well, between transportation and the pension system, we've really socked it to the counties. State government has.
Well, because they're still taking from, the Transportation Trust Fund, too. I mean...
Well, I don't think a lot of people understand what happened. 2 years ago, we implemented a gas tax increase and tied it to CPI. So it goes up every year, regardless if the economy goes down. There's no metric in that legislation to ever be reduced. But a year prior to that, they changed the funding formulas. See, the counties used to get 30% of the fuel tax revenue.
Okay.
Now we get less than 2%. They regularly transfer 19% over to the general fund. So to put some hard money behind this, in 2007, St. Mary's County got over $8 million from state government to maintain our roads. Last year we got less than $1 million. So even though you're paying more for at the pump, you're getting less.
We're getting less.
Yes.
That's nuts.
We seem to be getting... really taken advantage of here.
So what are you going to do? Okay, so you're running for Delegate 29A. Let's say you get in. How are you going to go up there and change it?
Well, we're gonna do more than hope. We're gonna drive some voters to the polls, and people have control of this. We want to get Larry Hogan elected because things would be a lot more easy to correct if we have some more like-minded individuals, especially if we control 1/3 of the executive. Of government. Having control of the executive branch would be huge.
Right. To back up one step here to this teacher's pension, I've been fascinated in this election, and I don't have a dog in this fight, by the silence coming from the teachers as it relates to their pensions. Why do you think that's not? There aren't teachers out there screaming, "Wait a second, our pensions are now in jeopardy." Because the burden of them has been shifted to the counties, and counties are kind of like, well, we're going to try our best. We want to make sure you get, but we don't know where the money's going to come from. And it doesn't seem like anybody's really understanding the gravity of this.
Well, I think the biggest problem in the teacher's pension, it's too far out in the future. And people
they've really kicked it down the road.
But this isn't just a problem for teachers. It's a problem for taxpayers because that pension system's not going to go bankrupt. It'll be backstopped by the taxpayer.
Yeah, it has to be made up.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a commitment there. The commitment has to be honored.
Yeah.
Well,
this is everyone's problem.
It is everyone's problem because the only way to honor it is to raise taxes again.
Well, and you had Comptroller Francho come in and talk about the 67% property tax increase, or they expected. And a lot of people don't know what that is. I heard yesterday talking about...
To fix the problem.
Well,
totally, it would need 67%.
Well, not to fix the problem. Under our system in Maryland, one reason why we have a AAA bond rating is because the income stream to pay those bonds back is off of property taxes. Right now, the state brings in about $700 million of revenue from property taxes, state portion. We're in debt $1.3 billion.
And is that because of the down economy and assessments are lower, and assessments probably won't grow for another? And you're a real estate guy, so I mean,
assessments are down.
They are down, so that's less money, right?
Yes, it is. We're one of 2 states in the entire nation that are actually doing worse real estate wise than we did in 2012. MarketWatch did a good case study on that, and I put a link on my Facebook if anybody wants to go out there and read that.
Right.
So that's one issue, but the biggest issue is just frivolous spending. Frivolous spending.
Oh, give me an example of frivolous spending.
Well, it's funny because I've heard a bunch of people on the radio, and they nobody can ever name an exact
give
program.
me an example of frivolous spending.
Here's a good example of liberal logic. Drug needle exchange program. Now, you come in there, you hand them 1 needle, they give you 10. The program exists. It's $250,000, a very small amount of money for budget-wise, but the symbolism's huge. We're saving people from, giving them needles to save them from AIDS,
right?
While killing them by supporting their drug addiction and overdoses.
So you would totally get rid of the needle exchange program?
Yeah, that should be eliminated from the budget. Another cut, 23 jurisdictions maintain their own prison, yet Baltimore City is using taxpayer funding from the state. That should be eliminated. You go back to your teacher.
But that prison up there is fabulous. They have no issues at all at the Baltimore prison.
Yeah, I mean, other than the guards getting pregnant by the inmates and stuff like that, there's no issues at all.
It's one of the awesome, right?
You go back to the teacher's pension. I hate to keep harping on that, but one thing was we changed some legislation back in 2008 that uncapped the management fees. So just as the stock market was going down, we uncapped the management fees on that. We pay $300 million in management fees for that portfolio, for a portfolio that constantly underperforms the S&P 500.
We pay $300 million or $300,000 for somebody.
No, $300 million for the management fees of
$300 million just to manage the money.
Right.
Oh my!
In 2008, it was $62 million. So
what?
We pay $300 million on management fees of the contribution rates that we're robbing. Only comes in at about $200 million.
Oh my
I can lose money for you at about $150 million.
I can do that.
I would take over that campaign tomorrow.
Listen, I'll do it for $50 million right now.
Well,
do I hear $50 million?
Common recurrence with government. When the government picks winners and losers, you normally end up getting stuck with the losers.
Okay.
His name is Matt Morgan. He is running for delegate 29A. 29A. Formerly Johnny Wood's seat. He would like to fill that. We got a couple minutes left here. Anything you want voters to know about you before they go to the polls?
Well, I think I'm a well-informed, smart guy, and I'm going to work really hard to represent this area.
And gosh darn it, people like you.
That's right.
I think people like me. I hope they do. Not everyone.
Yeah.
Not from what I heard.
Not everybody.
I want to
likes
encourage
everybody.
people to come out. If you support me, Larry Hogan, Wah, and you want to change Maryland, we can't fix today's problem with the same logic that created the problems. So we need people to come out and vote. This is the last day that early voting is open.
Right.
It's right down in Leonardtown. Come down there. It's super easy. You don't have to bring an ID. You just show up and basically, if you know an address of where you live, you can vote. It doesn't even have to be you, apparently.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, I've had a lot of people ask me, do I need my ID? And
you do not need an ID.
You do not need an ID.
I take mine with me though, always, just in case.
Right.
Just in case. All right.
Well, that's good practice.
Yeah, for the future, I'm sure. Matt Morgan running for 29A delegate from the great state of Maryland. So good luck to you, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you all for having me, and thank you all for interviewing the candidates. And
no problem, man.
Taking the time to do that.
Glad to do it. 8 minutes in front of 8 o'clock. Let's check the roads.